The first wave of the Island Dominion hit Earth like a storm, shattering everything in its path. Massive, sleek starships descended from the skies, darkening the atmosphere with their size. They were unlike anything Earth had seen, vast, metallic behemoths, capable of deploying entire battalions within moments. The first human response was panic, as cities across the globe fell within hours. The military scrambled, but Earth's defenses were no match for the relentless alien onslaught. At first, humanity's world governments were in shock. The initial invasion was swift and merciless. The Island's weapons emitted beams of energy capable of disintegrating entire buildings, and their soldiers, biomechanical giants, waded through urban centers, hunting down any survivors with ease. The alien fleet's sheer firepower left no time for coordinated defense. Earth's militaries, spread thin and unprepared for such an overwhelming assault, stood little chance. The sky, once blue, was now a fiery canvas of explosions and falling debris. Nations tried to band together, but their efforts were disorganized and futile. The Island Dominion had planned for this, knowing exactly how to cripple Earth's forces. The atmosphere itself was filled with the sounds of terror, the screams of fleeing civilians, the crackling of air defenses exploding in the distance, the thudding crash of skyscrapers as they collapsed under the weight of alien bombardment. Among the chaos, a small group of survivors found refuge underground. Among them was Captain Sarah Vallon, a former military strategist, now just a leader of a ragtag group of civilians who had narrowly escaped the initial devastation. She had witnessed the obliteration of her home city, her family lost in the flames. She had no illusions about what the Island would do to the rest of Earth. They would conquer it, enslave its people, or wipe them out entirely. In the underground tunnels, Sarah convened with a handful of survivors, a few soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had managed to evade the alien forces. They gathered around a flickering holographic map of Earth, showing the swarms of violent ships orbiting the planet, systematically destroying Earth's cities. The map also showed one glimmer of hope. A lone alien scout ship had crash-landed on Earth's surface during the initial attack. It was far from the epicenter of the invasion, but the crash site could hold the key to turning the tide. If they could get there, if they could secure the wreckage, maybe they could gain some insight into the alien technology that had so easily destroyed them. "We can't let this happen," Sarah muttered, her voice low but filled with determination. "The Island think they can conquer us without effort. We're going to show them just how wrong they are." The others around her nodded, understanding the weight of what she was saying. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for Earth's soul, for its right to exist. The rallying cry of "never give up" echoed through the bunker. They were humans, and they would never surrender. At that moment, a silent promise passed between them all. They would strike back, no matter the cost. The invasion had just begun, but Earth's resistance had already been born. As the days passed, the full scope of the devastation became clear. Earth's great cities were reduced to rubble, and entire nations fell under the crushing weight of the island forces. The world's leaders, overwhelmed and scattered, could only watch in helplessness. Communication was severed, and most of Earth's remaining military assets were annihilated in the first wave of the invasion. But within the ruins, something unexpected began to happen, something the Island hadn't anticipated. The survivors started to organize. In the wreckage of a city once filled with vibrant life, Sarah Vallon and her small group of rebels scavenged for anything useful. The alien scout ship, which had crash-landed near the outskirts of a once thriving metropolis, was their target. They couldn't afford to waste time. Every minute mattered now. Sarah knew the wreckage could provide them with vital intel, perhaps even technology that could be used to fight back. They had to take the risk. A handful of experienced fighters, former soldiers, engineers, and survivalists, joined Sarah on the dangerous journey. The path to the crash site was treacherous, blocked by wrecked vehicles, fallen debris, and the constant threat of violent patrols. Each day, the invaders scoured the area for survivors, but the humans had learned to move like shadows. They hid in the ruins, slipping past the alien patrols under the cover of darkness, moving swiftly and silently. By the time they reached the crash site, Sarah's team had learned to rely on their wits more than their weapons. The Axylon, with all their technology, never expected humans to fight like this. They had underestimated Earth's ability to adapt, to use the environment to their advantage. The Axylon might have superior technology, but humans had something they couldn't calculate: resourcefulness and the will to survive. The scout ship, a sleek alien vessel, lay partially embedded in the earth, its metallic surface scorched and dented from the crash. The site was eerily quiet. No Axylon patrols, no enemy forces nearby. It felt too good to be true. But Sarah wasn't about to let her guard down. "Stay sharp," she ordered in a hushed voice. They circled the wreckage, eyes darting for any signs of alien movement. As they entered the wrecked ship, the walls still hummed with an eerie faint energy. The interior was unlike anything human engineering had ever produced. Alien symbols scrawled along the walls, systems that flickered with strange, otherworldly light. Inside the cockpit, a lone alien pilot lay slumped over the control console, its face obscured by a helmet-like mask. It was dead, but its presence was a grim reminder of the invaders' power. Sarah's hands shook as she reached for the console. She had no idea what she was doing, but she had to try. The others began scavenging the ship's tech, taking what they could find: power cells, fragments of alien weapons, and pieces of communication tech. "We're going to need everything we can get," Sarah muttered, her eyes scanning the dim cockpit. The human engineers quickly set to work, pulling out any components that might be of use. They hacked into the alien ship's central systems, hoping for some kind of clue, some way to use the technology against them. Then it happened. A soft, pulsing hum filled the air. The ship's systems flickered to life, and for a moment, Sarah thought she had triggered a trap. But no. Instead, a display screen blinked on, revealing a series of alien coordinates, a map to several key Axylon military locations across Earth. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "This is it," Sarah breathed, her heart racing. "We can't just hide anymore. We can strike back." In that moment, Sarah knew, the resistance had begun. They'd fought with desperation, but now they had a plan. The first step was to hit that Axylon where it hurt the most: their supply lines, their command centers. Earth would become a battlefield, not just for survival, but for revenge. As they left the wreckage behind, the group of survivors carried more than just stolen technology. They carried the first glimmer of hope, the knowledge that Earth wasn't finished yet. The spark had been lit, and now there was no turning back. The days that followed the discovery of the alien map were a blur of preparation, tension, and relentless planning. Sarah Valen and her team worked tirelessly, poring over the alien data they'd stolen, analyzing every piece of technology they had scavenged. The map revealed key locations: alien supply depots, hidden outposts, and communication hubs scattered across Earth. These were the lifeblood of the Axylon invasion, vital points that could cripple the alien forces if targeted strategically. But even with this newfound intelligence, the odds were still overwhelmingly against them. Humanity was fractured, its resources spread thin. The Axylons might seem insurmountable, their technology far more advanced than anything Earth had at its disposal. Yet it was the spark of defiance, fueled by rage and desperation, that kept Sarah and her band of survivors going. Their first mission was simple: disrupt an alien supply convoy making its way through the wreckage of a ruined city. It wasn't a decisive strike, but it would be the start. The plan was to use guerrilla tactics: hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before the Axylon could retaliate. They knew the risks. Failure meant death or worse, capture by the invaders, but Sarah was resolute. If they could take out even a fraction of the supplies, it would send a message. Humanity was not done. The night before the operation, as Sarah looked out over the remnants of the devastated city, she could hear the distant hum of alien ships circling overhead. The fear was palpable among her team, but it was tempered by something else: determination. Tomorrow, they would strike. The convoy appeared as planned, its alien escorts sweeping the desolate streets with their unnerving mechanical gait. The human team had set up traps along key routes, using the debris of the fallen city as cover. The sound of their footsteps echoed in the silence, a reminder of the enemy's alien efficiency. As the convoy neared, Sarah gave the signal. Explosions rocked the area. The first wave of traps hit, sending alien soldiers and vehicles spiraling into chaos. The humans had been careful to steal a few Exilan weapons during their earlier missions, and now, armed with energy-based rifles, they opened fire. The Exilan, taken by surprise, hesitated for a critical moment, and it was all the humans needed. They were quick, efficient. The ambush was swift. Violent vehicles were disabled, their weapons disabled or destroyed. In moments, the convoy was crippled, its cargo taken or destroyed. The team moved fast, setting off more explosive charges before retreating into the shadows. The Exilan forces, now scrambling to regroup, were left with little more than burning wreckage and scattered survivors. The victory was hard-won, but it was a victory nonetheless. When Sarah and her team regrouped in the safety of an underground hideout, there was a rare moment of celebration. The convoy had been obliterated, and Earth's first victory had been secured. The Resistance, once a fragmented, desperate few, had proven that they could hit the invaders where it hurt. But the victory came at a cost. One of Sarah's closest allies, Lieutenant Lucas, had been gravely injured in the firefight. As Sarah crouched by his side, her hand gripping his, the full weight of what they were doing settled on her shoulders. This was no longer a war for survival, it was a war of liberation, and every step forward would cost them more. Still, there was no turning back. The alien forces would retaliate, but now they would have to reckon with humanity's newfound resolve. Sarah stood, looking down at the ruined convoy, and clenched her fist. This was just the beginning. Earth's first victory would be the spark that ignited a fire that Exilan would never be able to extinguish. The success of the convoy raid reverberated far beyond Sarah Valen's small team. News of humanity's first victory spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of survivors across the globe. What had started as a few scattered resistance cells now began to evolve into something much larger, a unified, worldwide rebellion. The Exilan forces, initially confident in their dominance, found themselves under siege in cities they had once believed securely occupied. Humans had learned quickly guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and unyielding resolve could slow down even the most formidable invaders. In the weeks following the raid, Sarah's group grew. Their numbers swelled with former soldiers, engineers, scientists, and civilians, each with their own reason to fight. The remnants of Earth's military forces, once fractured and hopeless, began to form a unified front. Former adversaries set aside old grievances, knowing that their survival depended on their ability to cooperate. This newfound unity was the catalyst the resistance needed to go from hit-and-run skirmishes to full-scale attacks. Sarah had become a symbol of this unity. As leader of the growing coalition, she found herself in more and more heated strategy sessions with resistance leaders from around the world. They communicated through a patched-together network of stolen alien tech, their voices filled with determination. Each new victory fueled their resolve. Each new recruit was a testament to their cause. In cities like London, Moscow, and New York, human insurgents began launching synchronized strikes. A network of underground fighters, every man, woman, and child doing their part, tore into the violent supply chains, sabotaging their equipment, and taking down their communication networks. The alien forces, once invincible, were now being steadily worn down. Even in the heart of island-controlled territories, pockets of resistance continued to emerge, forcing the invaders to spread their forces thin. But the Asylum were no fools. As their grip on Earth started to falter, they doubled down. They began to retaliate with brutal efficiency, deploying their most advanced soldiers and tightening their hold on key strategic locations. They didn't just respond with force, they employed psychological warfare, broadcasting images of human cities burning, trying to break the resistance's morale. They believed that fear and despair would crumble human resolve, but they underestimated the fire burning within every rebel's heart. Earth's survivors were no longer afraid. They were furious. The turning point came when the Asylum launched a massive raid on an underground resistance stronghold in Paris. The rebels had been using the city's catacombs as a safe haven, but when the alien forces discovered their location, they bombarded it mercilessly. Hundreds of human fighters perished, but Sarah's team managed to escape with valuable intel, coordinates leading to the location of a major Asylum command center. This attack, this unprovoked slaughter, changed everything. The resistance was no longer just about survival, it was personal. Humanity's fight had transcended desperation. It had become an all-out war for vengeance. Sarah addressed the united global forces, her voice broadcast through every resistance channel. We don't just want to survive anymore. We want to make them regret ever setting foot on our planet. This is for our fallen brothers and sisters, for our families, for our cities, for Earth itself. With this rallying cry, the resistance surged forward. In every corner of the world, insurgents rallied, strikes became bolder, and every attack hit harder. What had once been a desperate, scattered rebellion was now a global war, coordinated and unified in purpose. As Sarah and her coalition leaders planned their next moves, they could feel the momentum building. The Asylum were no longer the conquerors, they were the ones on the defensive. The world had united under the banner of revenge, and the wrath of Earth was about to make itself known. The rebellion's momentum continued to build, and with each victory, the stakes grew higher. Humanity had shifted from being scattered pockets of resistance to a formidable, coordinated force. The global network of insurgents had learned how to hit hard and fast, and every Asylum stronghold was now under constant threat. Yet, the time had come to take the war directly to the heart of the island dominion. The world's remaining forces had come to a unified conclusion. To end the war, they needed to cripple the Island Command Center. The intelligence Sarah's team had secured from the Paris raid revealed the location of a massive Asylum stronghold, a heavily fortified underground base located beneath the ruins of what had once been the city of Berlin. It was from here that the entire Asylum operation on Earth was coordinated, a central hub controlling their forces, logistics, and communications. If they could infiltrate it and take down the command center, they could sever the head of the Asylum invasion. The problem, of course, was that the base was nearly impenetrable, surrounded by thousands of heavily armed alien soldiers and bristling with sophisticated defense systems. This would be the boldest, most dangerous mission the rebellion had ever undertaken. Sarah stood in a darkened war room, surrounded by her closest allies, engineers, tacticians, and rebel leaders. The plan they devised was a blend of daring, precision, and sheer audacity. A multi-pronged assault would be launched from several directions at once, all converging on the heart of that island stronghold. While the Asylum focused their defenses on one front, the rebels would slip past their lines using stolen island tech to mask their movements. They had learned enough about the alien technology over the past few months to exploit a critical weakness in their surveillance systems. But there were risks. The most critical aspect of the plan was a covert strike team, which Sarah had been selected to lead. Her team would infiltrate the stronghold directly, hacking into the alien command network and disabling the defense grid from within. If they failed, the rebellion would face complete annihilation. But Sarah was resolute. The time for hesitation had long passed. There was only one option left: to strike at the heart of that Asylum beast. The night before the mission, Sarah's mind raced. They had all seen what that Asylum were capable of: brutal, efficient, and unyielding. The rebellion's victories had drawn attention, and the Asylum would now be expecting retaliation. There would be no easy way in. The chances of survival were slim, but the potential rewards were worth the risk. Earth's future rested on their shoulders. As Sarah lay in her bunk, her thoughts turned to the fallen soldiers, to the families who had lost everything. The fires of vengeance burned hotter than ever. This wasn't just about reclaiming their world. It was about restoring the pride of humanity. Earth had been brought to its knees, but it was standing up again. She stood, looking at the faces of the men and women who had volunteered for the mission. Their expressions were grim, but there was an unspoken understanding between them. This was their last chance to make a decisive blow. At dawn, the mission began. The rebel assault launched, pushing forward with precision, creating a path for Sarah and her team. They fought their way toward the command center, every step forward a brutal test of will and strength. Alien forces threw everything they had at them, but the rebels pushed through, motivated by the burning desire for victory. The heart of that Asylum dominion lay just ahead, and the rebellion's fate was about to be sealed. The operation had begun, and every moment felt like a countdown to either victory or annihilation. As Sarah Valen and her strike team advanced toward the heart of that Asylum stronghold beneath the ruins of Berlin, the air seemed to hum with tension. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the heavily guarded underground base, disable the alien command systems, and cripple the Asylum's ability to coordinate their forces on Earth. Failure meant not just defeat, but the total destruction of the rebellion, and perhaps the extinction of humanity itself. The team moved swiftly and silently, their movements synchronized, as they took cover behind the wreckage of destroyed buildings. The once proud capital of Europe was now a war zone, a shattered landscape of debris and broken dreams. The Asylum, having anticipated this kind of attack, had reinforced their defenses to an unimaginable degree. The Resistance had stolen enough alien technology to get through their outer perimeter, but the deeper they ventured into the enemy's lair, the more perilous their journey became. The entrance to that Asylum base was hidden beneath an enormous, decimated plaza, now just a hollowed-out shell. Hidden sensors, motion detectors, and energy barriers lined the path to the base. Sarah and her team had prepared for every eventuality: stolen alien cloaking devices, EMP grenades to disable detection systems, and laser cutting tools to break through locked doors. The first obstacle was a set of island drones patrolling the entrance. They were fast, efficient, and deadly, and the team had no choice but to take them out silently. The battle was over in seconds: an explosion of suppressed fire and a brief flash of electric sparks, but the noise echoed far too loudly for Sarah's liking. The clock was ticking, and they couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. As the entrance door slid open, revealing the dimly lit, sprawling complex beneath the city, Sarah felt the weight of what they were about to do. The central control room, where the Asylum leadership coordinated their operations on Earth, lay deeper within. Inside it, they would find the command systems that controlled the alien fleet in orbit, their supply lines, and their communication networks. If they could disrupt those systems, the entire invasion could falter. But getting to the control room wasn't going to be easy. They passed through high-tech hallways, their footsteps muffled by the thick metallic floors. At every corner, the team paused, listening for any sign of movement. The Asylum were everywhere: patrolling soldiers, automated defense systems, and droids monitoring every inch of the facility. Yet, as they ventured deeper into the heart of the stronghold, they encountered no resistance. It was almost too quiet. That's when they reached the heart of the Asylum command center, a vast, circular room filled with holographic displays, alien consoles, and glowing control panels. It was beautiful in its alien design, a surreal blend of advanced technology and stark, cold efficiency. But Sarah wasn't here to admire the craftsmanship. She motioned to her team, signaling that they were close. At the center of the room, a massive holographic map of Earth flickered. It showed the global coordinates of every Asylum operation, every military base, every alien fleet positioned in orbit. It was the key to everything, the brain of the entire invasion. With a single, well-placed strike, they could bring it all crashing down. But just as they began to advance toward the central console, alarms blared throughout the facility. A high-pitched, mechanical voice echoed through the hallways. Intruders detected. Defense protocols activated. The door behind them slammed shut with a resounding crash, trapping them inside. For a moment, panic gripped the team, but Sarah quickly regained control. "Stay calm. We knew this was coming." They'd known the risks of infiltrating the command center, but now the time for caution had passed. The clock was ticking, and the future of humanity was on the line. The final battle was about to begin. The Asylum would fight to the death to protect their hold on Earth, but Sarah and her team weren't about to let that happen. The rebellion had come this far, and they wouldn't stop now. The moment the alarms blared, the world seemed to freeze. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat an echo of the danger closing in. The door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate in the heart of the Asylum command center. No backup, no retreat. There was only forward. The mission that had brought them here was now their only chance of survival. "Move now," Sarah barked, her voice steady despite the rising tension. She gestured for the team to spread out, eyes scanning the room for the nearest console. The holographic map still pulsed in the center, displaying real-time data of every Asylum position on Earth. This was it, the key to everything. They had no time to lose. The team sprinted to their designated positions, each member quickly setting up their tools to hack into the alien network. But the seconds felt like hours as the walls seemed to close in on them. The whine of alien machinery grew louder, signaling that the defense systems were fully engaged. Automated turrets began to lower from the ceiling, their targeting lasers sweeping the room. "Cover fire, now," Sarah shouted, her rifle raised as she took the first shot at a turret. The laser blasts ricocheted off the walls as the team fired back in unison. The room erupted into chaos. Violent drones poured in from hidden panels in the walls, their metallic bodies glinting in the harsh light as they advanced toward the team. Sarah's pulse quickened, but her focus never wavered. She fired again, picking off the advancing drones with deadly accuracy, while her team worked tirelessly to breach the central control system. The first drone fell, its body crumpling into a heap of twisted metal, but more kept coming. "We need those systems offline, now," one of the engineers shouted over the din of gunfire. Sarah ducked behind a pillar, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy blasts. She could feel the heat as the energy bolts seared the air around her. Her team was running out of time, but they were not about to give up now. She peered around the corner of the pillar, her eyes locking on the central console. If they could just get to it, they could sever the Asylum's hold on Earth. 5 seconds, the engineer yelled, his fingers flying over the alien interface. The hum of the control systems began to slow, and the blaring alarms grew more frantic. It was then that the Asylum commander arrived. A towering figure, its armor glinting under the harsh light, entered the room through a hidden door. Its alien features were obscured by a jagged helmet-like mask, and its glowing eyes were filled with malice. The Asylum commander raised its weapon, a long, gleaming energy rifle, and aimed directly at Sarah. Without thinking, Sarah lunged forward, tackling the commander to the ground. The two struggled in a blur of motion, Sarah's hands gripping the alien's armored shoulders while the commander's claws slashed through the air. The struggle was fierce, but Sarah was fueled by a force stronger than fear, pure, unrelenting rage. The commander's weapon fired, but Sarah twisted, and the blast ricocheted into a nearby console, sending sparks flying. With a grunt, Sarah used the momentum to shove the commander off her, rolling to her feet and firing her rifle into the commander's chest. The shot landed true, and the assailan's body spasmed, collapsing in a heap. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Done. The engineer shouted as the console powered down. The map of assailan forces flickered and went dark. The command center was cut off from the rest of the invasion forces, the flow of data severed in an instant. But as the last of the drones fell silent, the team knew the battle wasn't won yet. The assailan would retaliate. This was only a temporary victory. The rebellion had just taken out the heart of their operations, but the war was far from over. Sarah took a deep breath, scanning the room. Her team was battered but alive. The assailan's grip on Earth had been shaken, but humanity still had a long road ahead. There was no more running. There was only the fight. "This is just the beginning," Sarah said, her voice filled with grim determination. The rebellion had struck a blow to the assailan's empire, but their fight was only going to get harder, and humanity was ready for whatever came next. The silence in the command center was deafening after the final drone fell. The only sound was the ragged breathing of Sarah and her team, their hearts still racing from the battle they had just survived. The assailan commander lay motionless on the floor, the once imposing figure now nothing more than a crumpled heap of alien armor. Sarah glanced around at her team. Everyone was alive, but the cost of the mission had been steep. They had struck a significant blow, but the war was far from over. "Status report," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. The engineer, who had been busy securing the control panel, turned to her. "We've isolated their command systems. Their fleet's communications are down. For now, Earth's forces have the upper hand, but this is just a temporary shutdown. We have to move quickly if we're going to capitalize on this." Sarah nodded. She knew this wouldn't be the end of the assailan threat, not yet, but this was a pivotal moment. The alien forces were disoriented, their leadership thrown into chaos. This was humanity's chance to strike with everything they had. "We need to get this intel back to the surface," Sarah ordered. "The world is waiting for us." They quickly loaded the stolen data, maps, communications logs, and detailed plans of the remaining assailan forces into their secure data drives. With the assailan command severed, the battle for Earth had changed, but the world's forces needed to know how to exploit the disruption before the aliens could regroup. The team made their way back to the surface, but as they approached the exit, they saw the extent of the damage. The once great city of Berlin was now a war zone, its streets scared by battle, buildings reduced to rubble. Yet there was a sense of hope in the air, a realization that humanity was no longer fighting a losing battle. The rebellion had shaken the foundations of the violent invasion, and though the alien forces were regrouping, they were not invincible. Outside, the resistance had already begun to mobilize, their forces amassing in the streets. There was a palpable sense of unity in the air, and for the first time in years, there was a glimmer of true hope. Sarah's communicator buzzed. It was a global transmission, a signal broadcast from every major resistance cell across the planet. The voice that came through was that of General Kessler, a once skeptical leader of the United Earth Forces, who had now become a staunch ally in the rebellion. "People of Earth," Kessler's voice rang out, "the assailan have struck at our hearts, but they have not broken us. Today, humanity has shown that we will not surrender. The battle for our world is far from over, but thanks to the bravery of our resistance fighters, the assailan leadership has been crippled. This is our moment. The time has come to reclaim our planet." Cheers erupted from the gathered forces as Sarah watched the broadcast on a nearby screen. The tide of the war had turned, but it was clear this victory was just the beginning. The assailan were still out there, regrouping, learning from their mistakes. But humanity had shown them something they hadn't counted on: a will to fight, a determination that could not be broken. The rebellion's unity had become its greatest weapon. It was no longer just about survival, it was about vengeance. Every city, every home, every fallen soldier fueled the fire of humanity's resolve. The Axylon had made a fatal miscalculation. They had underestimated the fierce power of Earth's people. As Sarah looked out at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to rise over a war-torn but resolute world, she knew the true battle was just beginning. The Axylon had felt the wrath of humanity, but it was nothing compared to the storm they had yet to face. Earth would reclaim what was theirs, and they would make the Axylon regret ever invading their planet. This was only the beginning of humanity's vengeance.